Greetings to the Mind the Business That Pays You family. I have with me, I use this term loosely, a gentleman with me today, and Ron Story Jr. I'm just kidding because he's a jokester. He's going to get me back. Ron Story Jr., he's the CEO of SpeakerHub. And how you doing today, Ron?
I'm doing well. I'm glad you invited me onto your show. I appreciate it, Mark.
Yes, sir. It's my pleasure. You're doing great work, and our people need to hear about it. I want to, before we get into some questions, Ron, and about your company, I want to know in terms of what you do, what is it that you do and why are you great at it?
I think so. Basically, I help speakers or entrepreneurs to use their voice to get booked on podcasts, paid speaking gigs, and press coverage so that they don't have to be TikToking.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not trying to dance on TikTok to grow my business. I'm almost 50. Shouldn't be doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I'm really good at helping other entrepreneurs to do the same thing because I'm fearless. I'm willing to believe in myself more than what others. I don't need the validation from other people. I think that that's really what it's come down to. I've had enough experience, both negative and positive, to understand that if you just keep going, it usually works out. So that's kind of how I look at things.
I appreciate that. Tell us the origin story, Ron. How did growing up in East St. Louis shape your approach to entrepreneurship and public speaking?
Well, so I grew up in East St. Louis, and most people know East St. Louis. It's a very tough city. At one point, it was the murder capital of the United States. And if you knew people from East St. Louis, it's a small town. But Miles Davis, Tina Turner, Jackie Joyner Kersee, Don Harper, all these Olympians, LaFonso Ellis, Conzo Martin, like all of these famous baseball players, Brian Cox, all of these people from East St. Louis. But it's a town of 20,000 people, right? Now, growing up, I wanted to play baseball and basketball and all those things too, but I'm 5'6".
Mm-hmm.
Ain't gonna be dunking. Spud Webb was the last one that was my height that made it in the NBA. So I had to pick a different path, and I knew that business is a sport that I could play my entire life, and it wasn't based on your physical stature. You didn't have an advantage. If someone was taller than me, they didn't have an advantage over me. It was based on courage and mental capacity. East St. Louis provided me with that courage and that mental capacity to have the confidence that I could walk into any room and not be ashamed that I grew up in East St. Louis or that I am 5'6" or I'm a black guy. I don't care. You're gonna have to beat me, at the bank. You're not gonna beat me because you're taller than me. That's had a huge effect on what I do, and I try to transfer that confidence over to our customers.
I hear you. That's awesome because when folk have a level playing field, our folk, things turn out different. And I appreciate what you're saying there. Listen, you transitioned from financial advising to building PitchDB and acquiring SpeakerHub. What was the turning point that made you go all in on the speaker economy?
So it really happened by mistake.
Okay.
It's like,
Okay.
so I was a financial advisor, with some large companies. I had 8 Allstate agencies, ran 300 offices for Farmers Insurance, was a part of a group that took a company public, that's an insurance company publicly, it's on the publicly traded stock market. And I had done everything I thought I could do in the insurance business besides buy an insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
So I started doing consulting for software companies. And one of my friends said, dude, you keep helping these companies to put in sales systems and they get bought for all of this money, but all you get is your consulting fee. Have you ever thought about doing your own software company?
Okay.
I don't know how to code.
All right.
I can't code nothing. So with that being the case, someone said, well, dude, why don't you just buy one? Just like you were looking at buying insurance agencies, why don't you just start buying software companies? And I did. So since 2018, we've purchased 7 software companies. And PitchDB was the first one. Guestio was the last one that we did last July. So we've rolled up 7 software companies in the last 7 years.
Ron, it sounds like, you say you're from the inner city. You've seen some tough times and your family has. That's really not the stuff that people who buy companies, that's not really what they're usually made of. What is it about you that caused you to say, you know what, I'm not going to work for these guys anymore? Even though you were nudged by that person that said, well, I don't, it takes a little more than being nudged. What's the drive that you have to, buy companies?
Well, it was the only opportunity I had. Once I left the insurance business, Like when I was running for farmers, I worked from home, 6-figure job in 2007, and 300 offices for farmers. When I told them I was going to leave to go out on my own, I couldn't get a job again, right? So one of the worst decisions I ever made was leaving farmers. And I always say that because most of us as entrepreneurs, especially Black folks, we leave our jobs too prematurely.
Right.
And then we get caught out on what I call entrepreneurial unemployment.
Mhm.
Because when we go back to try to get into the job market, they say, yo, what were you doing over the last 2 years? Oh, I started my own company. Cool. How did that go? Oh, it went cool. Well, why are you interviewing for a job if it went cool? Now they don't trust you anymore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
But if you say, oh, no, it didn't go that well, you're interviewing for a sales position. Why weren't you able to sell over there? And it's like, but I got to do sales, marketing, accounting, operations, HR. I ain't got to do none of that here. I can just focus on selling, right? So there's this world of entrepreneurship that people don't tell you about and they glamorize it, but then people leave their job and they get screwed. I was one of those people. So if anybody ever asked me, hey, I'm working at this company, I'm thinking about leaving to go start something, I would tell them don't do it, right?
Mhm.
What I would tell them is stay there, but buy something.
Okay.
Because if you buy a business, it already has the people in place. The business is already operating. It's already profitable. It already has a proven system, right? I've never seen a McDonald's shut down. Why? Because McDonald's gives you a franchise system and a playbook to run that keeps running, right? You never, even though people don't even eat Long John Silver's, you still see them.
That's right.
That same Long John Silver's in St. Louis off of Kings Highway, been there for 40 years because the system just keeps printing out fish and chips, Captain D's, fish and chips. So I was forced into figuring out how to build systems and how to be an entrepreneur. So I don't think it was by choice, because if it was up to me, I interviewed for a lot of jobs to get back in the job force. Once I figured this out, I'm like, I could just go use this and my income can fund my acquisitions. But most people only really do that with real estate because we know that buying one real estate property isn't enough to help you retire from your job. So we see it done properly with real estate. We don't see it done properly with business. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense.
Can I
Yeah.
get 2 seconds just to explain what I mean by that? Because I don't know if
Please.
people get what I'm saying.
Yes.
When you hear someone talking about going into real estate the first time, are they talking about buying an existing house or developing vacant land? Which one?
The first time they're talking about buying an existing house in my mind.
Yeah. But when someone is thinking about starting their own business or becoming an entrepreneur, are they talking about buying an existing business or developing vacant land?
Most of the time, people have this syndrome that I got to start from scratch.
Yeah. Because nobody's ever told them that they can go buy a business just like you buy a house.
Yeah. It's
There's
a
the
total paradigm
FHA.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah. There's the FHA. There's the SBA.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's the same. Real estate is just the housing business. But if we had someone say, I'm gonna get into real estate, I'm gonna be a developer, we would ask, you ever bought vacant land before? You ever put down plumbing and piping and had all the utilities run to this vacant land? Do you know how to do roofs? Do you know how to pour cement? Nobody asks you all those questions when you say you're gonna develop a vacant land business. You don't know how to do accounting, marketing, sales, none of the stuff. So that's why the banks won't lend to you, right? Because there's no proven system saying that you know what you're doing. But if you bought an existing business, a franchise, the banks will give you that money quickly because they have 5 years of history of that business running. They have systems that are in place. They can drive by and look at it. They ain't got to wonder if you're going to build it. They can already see it.
Now, Ron, what you just broke down, now that you've said it, seems simple. But you've said it. One thing that is, I hope I'm not making an excuse for anybody. That's not my intention. But one thing that I see is that in this country, we are intentionally trained to be employees. So it's a paradigm shift to say, you know what? I'm gonna go buy this business, and you did that. It's not like you're from another country. You live in another country now, but you're from right here. And I'm still trying to figure out how you turned that corner. Actually, you told me it
Well,
was out of necessity.
well, it was out of necessity, but someone had explained to me that real estate was just because I flipped houses at one point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And someone said, real estate is just a housing business. We just call it real estate. So there's no difference between buying a business and buying an apartment building or buying a house. Once I understood that FHA, SBA, same down payment requirements, all of the stuff is exactly the same. Once I realized that, it's like, oh, well, we do see it. We see people. We all got a family member, an uncle that owns 5 properties.
Mm-hmm.
We do. We
Mm-hmm.
all got cousins that own apartments or commercial real estate. But we also have family members that tried to start from scratch that went bankrupt.
Now, was that a mentor, Ron, or was that somebody in passing that you knew very well that just said, "Hey, man, these are the same thing"? Because I have to tell you, I have real estate, but I never looked at it the way you just said it, and it's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's the same. So yeah, so I when I was younger, I hung out with most of the guys. They were 30 to 40 years older than me. So there's different people that I work with, especially at Allstate. A lot of these agents, they were older than me. I was the youngest dude in the room, so I would just be listening to them,
Yeah.
right? And the Allstate guys, they had multiple offices, right? They had 19 offices, 20 offices. I'm
Wow.
like, how y'all get these? And
Mm-hmm.
then they showed me, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me see if I can copy that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I came in working at one office and ended up 9, right? 8 or 9 when I ended up with at the end. So that was the gist when I was like, this is just like Allstate works, and I can have 9 locations because the system is the same at all of them. I don't have to go and reinvent the system. It was already built when I got here, right? So I think that that's the biggest thing. If I was giving anyone advice today, I would say buy a franchise because the systems are already there. The hardest part of entrepreneurship is systems creations. So
Yes.
you'll spend 3 years burning up your bread, which is going to be more expensive than the franchise fee. I'm just telling you, right?
Yes, sir.
It's going to be more expensive than the franchise fee. Keep your job.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest expense on any first 2 years of an entrepreneur is their own expense to pay for their lifestyle after they left their job.
Yeah.
So if you are used to spending $8,000 a month when you start this business, you got an $8,000 a month deficit because you and your wife or your family or your kids still got the same expenses, even though daddy got a new set of responsibilities. So, for me, it was smarter to leave the country so I could live in countries that had lower cost of living and build the businesses. When I bought PitchDB, I was living in Colombia. So all my employees are here. My first employees were out of Colombia, things of that sort. So I was able to keep the cost down to minimize some of that risk. I didn't have the American lifestyle with all of the expenses. Now, somebody's going to hear that and they're going to use that as an excuse. Well, I can't leave the country. Shut up. There's somebody in your neighborhood already buying businesses. You're just going to find an excuse. It don't matter what it is.
Yeah. If you don't want to do it, you're gonna find a reason why not to. Right. So let
Exactly.
me ask you this, Ron. Speaker Hub positions speaking as a predictable growth engine for businesses, and so walk us through the core idea of the speaker flywheel.
Okay. So here's what I figured out. I worked with about 300 of the top speakers, and they all wanted to get booked. But the ones who were getting booked all the time weren't that much better than the ones that weren't getting booked when it came to speaking talent. It was just that they were willing to speak for free or they had a way to get paid. Right. So they'll go on a podcast like this, knowing that people are going to go sign up for their product and service after hearing them on this podcast. Right. Or they'll go speak at a local association knowing that somebody in the room is going to bring me to talk at their company that's a member of the association. But the amateur speaker doesn't see that. They just bought into the idea. I bought a speaking course. They told me I could get paid $5,000 for telling my story when I fell off my bike when I was 12. Ain't nobody paying you for that at Microsoft, right?
Right.
But that's what sold the course.
Mm-hmm.
So what we learned at SpeakerHub is that every speaker should be getting paid before, during, and after their event. But most of the amateur speakers are the lowest paid speakers. They're only trying to get paid up front. So we started to focus on, we wanted to work with the highest paid speakers. So we started to focus on speakers who wanted to build a business with their voice. Let me give you a great example. Have you ever heard of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People?
Absolutely. Yeah.
How much revenue do you think that book generated or that IP, intellectual property, generated last year?
I don't know.
$287 million.
Million.
87 million. Look it up. The stock market, the company's called Franklin Covey. It's publicly traded. It did $287 million last year from that book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. The great thing is that most people have heard a speech from Stephen Covey or they've heard him talk about the book, 7 Habits, but he's been dead since 2012. So if you're just a keynote speaker, your business will die when you die.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've built a business around that intellectual property, they've turned that into a software program, 30 courses, corporate trainings. That's how they generate 287 off of that idea. But if I'm only a keynoter, I get paid to speak. Cool. Keep doing that. But your message will die with you unless you've built the intellectual property and the business. So we wanted to help business owners use their voice. And I'll give you a great example right now. Mark, how good are you at building sales funnels?
I'm really not that good.
Yeah, yeah. Most people ain't that good at it, right? But if I put you in a room with 20 people that are in your ideal target market and they could use your product and service, do you think you could at least get one of them to buy from you?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I get a couple.
yeah. You see the difference? That's the power of speaking. Right. So SpeakerHub is really designed for the person that doesn't want to build these crazy sales funnels, be dancing on TikTok, doing all this crazy stuff. We say, hey, look, let's just put you in the room with the people that are interested in you. The only people who are going to click on this podcast are those who read the title and say, I'm interested in what Ron's talking about. So they're there by volunteer. They're not forced to hear me. Right. But if in this 30 minutes, they said, dude, he from East St. Louis, I'm from Little Rock. We got the same idea. I'm from Gary, Indiana. I relate to him. I'm from the south side of Chicago. If his little black ass could do it, I could do it.
Mhm.
Right? Then I won. That means I helped somebody. That will keep them listening. Right? And maybe they don't know how to build a sales funnel or any of those other things. But they said, no, if I get on podcasts like he's on there talking with Mark, I could grow my accounting business. If I can go speak at the local insurance agency association and get in front of 20 financial advisors, maybe I can get 3 accounting clients out of that room. They ain't got to build no funnel. You're the funnel. That's what we're saying at SpeakerHub, is that you should be the funnel.
Gotcha. Now it's going to help some people. It's going to shame me a little bit, but it's going to help some people if I just go ahead and say that I have SpeakerHub, but I don't use it effectively. I need to say that because I want to know from you, Ron. It's like, here's the sickness. Okay. The sickness is I'll see something else and spend a couple dollars on that and then half use that. When I have SpeakerHub, you have an incredible vehicle. How do you help the sick folk like me that have it and need to use it?
So here's the one thing. I'll tell you a funny story, right? So I'm a firm believer that there is no easy route.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody in the marketplace is selling the easy route.
Mm-hmm.
If all you missing is this, all you missing is this. We call it the chocolate chip cookie problem.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with the chocolate chip cookie problem, Mark?
No, share it with me.
Okay. If you get the yellow bag of Toll House Nestle chocolate chips,
Mm-hmm.
you seen those before?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What's on the back?
Probably a big old cookie. I can't remember what's
On the back. It's got a
ingredient,
recipe on how to make cookies.
The ingredient. I got you. Yeah, yeah.
You got a recipe, right? On the front, it says, make the best cookies in the world with these chips.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a kid, I bought a Chef Boyardee pizza kit.
Mm-hmm.
And it said, make the best pizza using the Chef Boyardee pizza kit. I put it all on there, put the sauce, did all the stuff. I ain't have no cheese. They ain't put no cheese in the thing. Worst pizza ever, right? But the same way that on the back of the chocolate chips, they tell you need baking soda, you need salt, you need almonds, you need sugar, you need eggs, milk, all of this, but that ain't in the bag. So a lot of us as entrepreneurs, we bought the chocolate chips from somebody, we bought the flour from somebody else, we bought the salt from somebody else, we got the sugar from another company, right? And even if we did buy the kit, we're missing something, like I was missing the cheese. So I'm not saying that you're wrong for not using it, but you may have bought it before it was time to put it in. So when you're making a cake, the icing shouldn't go in the bowl first. If you try that, your cake gonna be terrible. The icing goes on last, right? So a lot of times we know we need the tool, but we just may have purchased it out of order because it was on sale today. I can get it at a better deal today than if I wait. I know I'm gonna need it. So I don't think you made a mistake. I think that there were other things that you felt you needed to put in the bowl before you put the icing of SpeakerHub on top of that cake. Is that making sense?
It makes sense, and I appreciate it. It makes me feel a little better about myself.
I mean, we work with 67,000 speakers, man. So I hear it all the time when they said, dude, I know that I need what you have, but I got this other thing. So I'm going to go ahead and get it, but I'm going to come back to you. Right. So what you have from us is a lifetime account. You paid us once, you'll never pay us again. So in 5 years, when you're ready, we'll still be there and we'll give you the same support. Right. But that's what normally happens. People buy things out of order. Right.
That's fair, and I appreciate that because there are when you get into this business, there are a lot of people that aren't necessarily trying to grow your business. They're trying to grow their business because you're in the position to buy what they have.
Mhm.
And I've never seen Speaker Hub is that the day that I met you, we were at the National Speakers Conference in Boulder, Colorado, and it's like I love the way. First of all, you're an amazing speaker, and you try to act like you can't speak. That's what I first learned about you.
Shh, don't tell
Yeah,
nobody.
yeah. But I appreciate what we're talking about. Let me ask you this. You've talked about booking thousands of meetings and running high volume outreach. What systems, because we just talked about the importance of systems or habits, made that scale possible?
So nowadays with software and automation, I think you can never be too old to learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
And nowadays with systems like SpeakerHub, literally a person can sign up, log in. The AI is going to look at what we know about you, go onto the internet and write your bio for you. You don't even have to write a bio anymore, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once it has your bio, it looks through the 3 million podcasts and starts saying, Mark will be good on these podcasts. So now all you got to do is approve them, right? Once you say, yeah, I want to mind the business that pays you podcast. I want to go on that one. The system looks at that podcast, looks at you and writes the email for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So now all you got to do is approve the email
Mm.
and then you click send. Now you're just waiting on the person, the podcast host or the event planner to tell you yes or no.
Yes.
Once they say yes, you mark it as booked. We give you the meeting notes to take to the meeting so that you're prepared for that interview or that speaking gig.
Wow, I didn't even realize that.
But wait, there's more. After you get the gig, we give you the QR code to capture the leads and the feedback that go back on your speaker page. So now if you go to my Speaker Hub page, you'll see I got 400 reviews, right? Because I always give away something. So if you're on here now, at the end, I'll give you something for free in exchange for a review.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but that's the gist of using systems. So if you're an entrepreneur that is listening to this, you're tired of trying to build sales funnels, you've got everything that's out there and it still ain't generating any business. I know that the one thing that generates business is talking to people.
Yes.
So we can help you talk to more people that will be interested in your stuff. That's all that speaking is. Outside of church, when I was a kid, I've never been dragged to a speaking gig. Your mama dragged you to church on Sunday morning. But other than that, you went every other speaking gig you went to, you volunteered to go in that room and sit down.
Mm-hmm.
So we can get you in front of a voluntary audience that's interested in what you're talking about, whether that's via podcast or in a live room.
Okay. In the booked in 5 days speaker booking challenge, you promise fast results. What are the most common mistakes people make when trying to book stages quickly?
Not reaching out to nobody.
Just sitting there.
We've heard it as a kid. Closed mouths don't get fed.
I know that's right.
So, I always joke with our customers. I always say, your credits on SpeakerHub, they're not Bitcoin. They don't become more valuable if you hold on to them. You got to you got to send the daggone emails. So Mark got $800 million worth of Bitcoin credits inside of SpeakerHub
Just
that
sitting
he
there.
hasn't sent out yet. Right. So he's always try to let them know that, hey, look, let's do what we call stage math. Let me
Mhm.
give you a great example. Mark, do you offer coaching or consulting or anything like that?
Yes.
Okay. If you had to take your average, like your lower plan and your higher plan, what's the average price that someone would pay you for consulting?
To go 5,000 to 15,000.
Okay. And if you were in a room, let's say 10,000, since that's in the middle, right?
Sure. Sure.
If you were in a room of 20 people that volunteered to come hear you talk about leadership or whatever topic you want to cover for that organization, right? They're all ideal. They didn't have to be there. They chose to come listen to you for an
Mhm.
hour and a half.
Uh-huh.
What's the likelihood that at least two of them will at least give you a chance to talk about your products and services afterwards?
At least two, a high likelihood.
Yeah. So that
Yep.
means that there's somewhere between 10,000 on the low side of your 5,000 up to $30,000 in that room that you're just saving up the credits and not talking to.
Just by not giving the exposure. Yeah.
You can't go speak at a place that you didn't ask to speak at.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, okay, let's do the back end math and say, what if you do this and it works? What's the upside? 30 grand per gig. Have you ever gotten paid 30 grand up front for a gig, Mark?
I have not.
Okay. Would it be worth it to take the risk of making 30 grand on the back end?
It absolutely would. Yeah.
There you go. That's how we motivate people in the Book to 5 Days Challenge. We do that math up front so they
Mm-hmm.
can see what they're actually leaving on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes a little bit easier to roll the dice or send an email, for
Use up
lack of
some of
better
those
words.
Bitcoin credits.
Yeah, exactly. Like risk a few credits on getting 30 grand. Right. So,
Mhm.
but
I'm
I'll
sorry.
tell you a quick story. So last year someone asked me after, it was actually less after we were in Denver, we had a conversation and he said, Ron, he told me two things. He says, you've been talking your whole life. You haven't been speaking your whole life, but you have a story that you should share with people. And I said, I respect that. Right.
Mhm.
But on the other side, he said, you getting all these people booked. Why ain't you on stages? People will follow you more if you were actually out here using your flywheel and using your system yourself. When the Michael Jordan of speaking tells you that you should do something, you don't kind of throw it off. You probably should listen to him. So in 2025, I did 125 podcast interviews, did 39 speaking gigs, wrote 140 articles on the speaking industry, and I hosted 300 consecutive days of live training, all because of that one kick in the butt, right? And we didn't announce it. We just did it, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what we know is that nobody paid me up front for any of that. I got
Mhm.
0 upfront keynote fees, but it added $1 million of revenue to SpeakerHub with me offering my products and services from those webinars, from those events. The event that I met you at, I had paid $25,000 to sponsor that event, but we got 250 signups from that 30-minute thing that I did on stage that day,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So I'm a firm believer that there's two things in life. There are guarantees and there are certainties.
Mhm.
What do you think the difference between a guarantee is and certainty?
That's a great question. Go ahead and break that down for me.
A guarantee is something that you look for in a third party.
Okay.
I buy this from you. What if it don't work? What's my guarantee? Are you going to make me whole if it doesn't work?
Mhm.
A lot of speakers go out looking for guarantees because that's what they had at their job. They were guaranteed that if they showed up, they was going to get their paycheck. But because they're new at speaking, they lack the certainty that if they invest the money or the time or they send the email, that is actually going to land them a gig. So they go back into guarantee world. I'm going to look for an agency to book me. Can SpeakerHub book me? Can this? What's my guarantee? What if it don't work? Do I get my money back? Imagine me buying a drum set, right? I'm going to go buy a Ludwig drum set. And I asked the guy at the drum store, hey, if I buy this drum set, am I guaranteed to be on Janet Jackson's next concert tour? Am I going to be? He'll be like, dude, it depends
What
on
you
your
talking
skills.
about?
But the drum set don't guarantee you a concert tour in the same way that a piece of software can't guarantee you a speaking gig. So certainty and guarantees. As you do little things in that speaker flywheel, you start getting on podcasts, your certainty goes up in your ability to talk about a topic. As you go and do a small gig in your city, speak at your church, go speak to some students, go speak at the YMCA, do something, your certainty goes up because the people come up and say, Mark, that was really good. Man, I would love for you to do this other thing. And then your certainty keeps going up. But certainty is belief in yourself. Guarantee is relying on someone else to make it right if you don't win.
Outsourcing. I get it.
Yeah,
That's
but
profound. Yeah.
watch this. Can you guarantee me that I'm going to get rich?
No.
How much would I have to pay you to guarantee me that I'm going to get rich?
Enough for me to give you some money back and you be rich and me still be rich.
Yeah, you see how crazy that is, right? It don't make sense, right?
Right. Right.
It don't make sense. But based on my skills and what you know about me, right? The more we talk, the more we hang out, the more you see what I have going on, your certainty that I may be rich someday increases. Just
Absolutely.
like mine should. I'm certain that as I get better, it increases, right? So if I had to give anyone any advice that was on the call today, especially when it comes to buying trainings, buying online courses, buying consulting, things of that sort, it would be this. If someone knocked on your door and said, if you give me $12,000, you could retire by January. If you think that that's a scam, stop expecting that from the courses that you buy.
Fair.
Because you buy a training for 15 grand. Yeah, it's a lot of money, but if I knocked on your door and said, give me 15 grand, I'm going to make you rich, you would call it a scam. But when it's on the internet and someone says, hey, take my course, I'll show you how to do this thing, and it'll raise your certainty and skill set so that you could be something down the road. If you don't become rich, it's not a scam. No different than your university degree. There are a lot of poor people with PhDs that got all the degrees in the world. They don't call their university a scam because they didn't guarantee them a job.
Mm-hmm. Now,
So
now,
I think that
I'm
that's
sorry.
one of the barriers for new entrepreneurs is that they're looking for guarantees of riches instead of tools that increases their own personal certainty.
I appreciate that very much. Listen, I know that SpeakerHub does trainings. You do that booked in five. How often do you do that booked in 5 days? Is that like a once a year or once a quarter thing? Or
Oh, it starts every Monday,
oh, you do it every week?
5 days, Monday through Friday. Start on Monday, end on Friday.
Wow, I didn't realize that. I thought it was like a special thing. It's like
No,
every
no.
week. Now your website is www.speakerhub.com, and I guess so when people go there, they can sign up for the next one coming up.
Yeah. So actually, if you leave me a review on what you thought about my talk today in my conversation with Mark, I'll actually give you a free pass to the Booked in 5 Days challenge. Mark will put the link in the show notes on
Hmm.
the YouTube channel. You can just click the link. If you learn one thing, give me 3 stars. If you learn 2 things, give me 4. If you learn 3 things, give me 5 stars if you like what I'm talking about. But give me some feedback. I'll give you a pass to the Booked in 5 Days challenge, and we'll even give you a trial of the software so you can start getting on more stages so that you can use your voice to grow a business. It is the first marketing channel, right? If you're a Christian, what they tell you, confess with your mouth and believe in your heart. Yeah, Jesus was a preacher. He was selling. Moses was a public speaker. He was selling.
That's
He
right.
didn't run a Facebook campaign to split to split,
Love it. I love it.
The 10 Commandments were not written with Chat GPT, guys, right? So, you're gonna have to do some work, but I think that your voice is probably the strongest marketing channel.
Ron, you've emphasized outbound strategies for speakers. How do you balance personalization and scale when pitching event organizers or podcasters?
Yeah. So what our system does is that it looks at what we already know about you from your speaker bio, and we know what the event does. Unless there's a clone of Mark Holland running around, it's going to be 2 different emails if we both pitch the same event. So
Yes.
that's the first thing. But the other thing is if you don't have access to something like that, just be straight up and honest, right? I mean, here's the one thing that I do know is that the difference between ordinary and extraordinary is the little extra in the beginning. And I'm surprised by how many people won't do 30 seconds more of work just to personalize an email,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? Like on our call today. I've been on a lot of podcasts, but I can tell that you did some research because of the questions that you're asking versus, man, tell me about this, tell me about that. You got specific questions about specific things that we do, right? That little extra work at the beginning makes all the difference. So if you want to be on someone's podcast, if you want to be on someone's stage, tell them why you're different than the person who's sending a generic template that they're sending to 5,000 other people. Just be different. Put your little cologne on it. We used to wear black suede. I don't know if you remember the Avon for the ladies, Skin So Soft. Put your
There you
Skin So
go.
Soft lotion on it and make it different. Just, it ain't got to be a whole long thing, but just let them know that this wasn't some generic thing.
A little bit of authenticity goes a long, long way. That's what I hear you saying.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what New Edition said,
Hey.
that the song, a little bit of love is all it takes. You remember
Yes.
that song? I don't know. I don't know
Yes.
if you remember that. I maybe,
Oh, you're not. We about the same place. I know what you're talking about.
yeah, New Edition. Okay. I want to make sure, you know.
Listen, Ron, walk us through a recent example where you turned a small stage or podcast appearance into a meaningful client or revenue stream.
Okay. So I'll give you a great example of this. Um, I'm a firm believer that every time that I'm on stage, it is the host, or even if I'm on a podcast, the host or the podcast, the event planner is referring me to a room full of referrals.
Yes.
So I'm not there to perform. I'm there to show that I know what I'm talking about to
Yes.
get customers out of the audience.
Hmm.
Right. So I can give you a great example of this. I went to Denver again, not the time when I saw you, but October of last year. And I spoke at an event, and I was the last minute addition on a 3-day event. And I had the last session on Sunday. You think everybody that was there on Thursday was there on Sunday at 4 p.m.?
No.
Nah, they weren't, right? But I ended up in that event, I ended up getting 70% of the people to request meetings with me.
That's
So that
awesome.
was about it was about 108 people in the room at the time. And I got 70 of them to request a meeting with me at the end of the talk. So you're talking about taking a stage that I had to pay to fly out there, right? I got put on the last day, the last speaker. I wasn't the headliner. This ain't like comedy where if you go last, it's because you're the best. Nah, this ain't like a comedy show. Kings of Comedy. Bernie Mac was at the end because he was the funniest. That ain't how speaking works. They usually try to put the best speakers up the first day when attendance is the highest.
Hmm.
When you and I met at the NSA event, who was the opening speaker first day? Les Brown, because the attendance was going to be the highest.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I was the last speaker on the last day after lunch.
After lunch.
Yeah, it's 4
Yeah.
o'clock.
4 o'clock. Yeah. Yeah. So you had some strikes against you, brother, but
They
you worked it
tired.
out.
they was tired. But it comes down to, number one, understanding that no matter if it was 5 people in the room or 500, I had to give them all the same respect, right? So my energy didn't go down. I didn't get discouraged, any of that. And that turned into a significant amount of business for us. 70 referrals out of that, 70 meetings and referrals from that I think that's turning lemons into lemonade.
Well, I thought you was going to say, no, I'm not going to mess with you. I was going to say water in the wine.
Nah, I was about to say poop into manure, but I ain't want to say that into fertilizer. Turning poop into fertilizer, right?
That was definitely a great showing. Let me ask you this. You've used lifetime deals and other pricing experiments to solve churn. What lessons from those experiments should SaaS founders and coaches know?
So a lot of 10 years ago, starting a software company was really hard, and you needed investors to raise money to be able to build the infrastructure, pay developers, things of that sort. Nowadays, it's so easy to start a business, whether it's SaaS or coaching or whatever. Investors get overwhelmed with people asking them to invest in their company, so forth and so on. So we use lifetime deals and other promotions like that in lieu of investors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I can go out and we bought SpeakerHub using lifetime deals. Let me say it again. The deal structure for SpeakerHub was paid for with lifetime deals. Here was the deal I put together. We should do another podcast about buying businesses and deal
We
structure.
really should, because I'm sitting here. Yeah, we really should.
So here was my deal with the owners of SpeakerHub. They were out of Belgium, and I said, I think I want to buy the company, and they named their price. So there's one rule in business: if they name the price, you name the terms. So I never argue price because I'm going to argue my terms, and then when they don't want my terms, then I can lower price. But I'll give them whatever price they want. So they named the price, and I said, "Cool, I'll give you that price under these conditions." These were the conditions. I want 30 days to market to the group without telling them that I own it. I want to introduce the new features to build up a waiting list. And I want to be able to offer this. If we don't sell enough to cover the down payment, I'll refund everybody and we don't have to do the deal at that price. And he said, I don't care. I just want the down payment at this price. So that's what we did. No money out of my pocket to buy the company.
Wow.
Right. But I was able to be creative on how I structured getting the down payment. Do you see what I mean? So we sold lifetime deals at $4,000, $5,000, right? You sell 100 of those, ain't that bad. You can use that to give a down payment. Does that make sense? So
It makes sense. Let me ask you something though. Where and we are going to have to do that podcast. I promise you, on buying businesses. Just is there a website or is there a community where people can find businesses for sale?
Yeah, there's a lot of websites. There's acquire.com, there's quietlight.com. These are more tech-based websites though.
Mhm.
Flippa, FLIPPA.com, empireflippers.com. I mean, there's a gang of them out there. But even though I've purchased some companies from those, I'm a firm believer that the best deals are done privately.
Mhm.
So Guestio was done me just reaching out to the founder. Didn't know him, just reached out to him. SpeakerHub was just me reaching out to Andras saying, "Hey, you interested in selling?" Like it was nothing fancy. So we call those pocket deals, meaning that businesses that are for sale, but they're not on the market.
Yeah,
But for the right price, the person would move on.
sure.
And so every deal that I've done, besides maybe one or two, have come from pocket deals, meaning me just reaching out to the founder who I knew was a bit tired and wanted to move on, or I heard it on a podcast interview, or someone that was related to them or friend to them told me, "Hey, I think such and such is interested in moving on." And
Yeah.
you know,
So just kinda being in the space, keeping your ear to the ground, and
let me reverse this. Wait, I'm going to be the podcast host.
yes, sir.
Mark, how do you find your real estate deals?
Pretty much
Okay, there it is. See, you see what I mean? Real estate is just a housing business. It's the same thing,
all of
bro.
the principles apply. I get it. I get it. I get it.
Off-market deals in real estate, same thing.
Yeah, because off-market deals, you don't have to worry about a bunch of competition. You go in and you're able to kinda talk it, you know.
We buy ugly houses. I buy ugly businesses. It's the same. It's the same thing.
Now we touched on this a little bit, but if there's more, please give it to me. How is SpeakerHub using AI? I know you're doing the pitch writing and the gig matching, and what are the limits you see for AI and speaker discovery and outreach?
Well, I mean, I think the limits of AI will always be the human. So I think that before AI destroys people, a person using AI will take advantage of people first, right?
Absolutely.
So the person who's not using AI is at a severe limit, right? Disadvantage to the person who's using AI in their business, right? So right now, the person who doesn't have AI, who's not doing anything, is no worse off than the person who has AI that's not doing anything.
Yeah.
But it's when the person who has AI is doing something and the person who doesn't have it is doing something that 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 distance is made, right? So if someone just uses our system, we find the gigs for them, we write the email, we monitor the replies, we give them the meeting notes to take in, we give them the frameworks to use on stage for the gig, we give them the ability to capture leads to make sales after the gig, and then they can take the recording of it and put it into the system and the AI will grade their speech. So we're using it in every way we can. What we can't do is give people willpower to do it on their own, right?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't force someone, like I can't take your hand and tape it to this mouse and force you to do this for 20 minutes a day. I can just make sure that when you log in, it's on, right?
Now, you just said something. I want to make sure I heard it right. To be effective with the tool of Speaker Hub, one can be effective with 20 to 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, because it takes like 15 seconds to send a pitch.
Hmm.
When you log in, we're already giving you the ones you should go on. All you got to do then is let the system write the email and you read it and make sure that it's not saying anything dumb. And
Yeah.
then you click send. And then it's go to the next one. Do the same thing. 20 minutes a day. I mean, we booked 7,000 meetings with event planners last year. Our average user is over the age of 60.
Hmm.
So the basic rule is if you can use Google, Amazon, and Gmail, you can use SpeakerHub. Because all you got to do is Google the gigs you want, add it to a cart like you do on Amazon, and send the email. If you can do those things, there's nothing blocking you besides certainty and guarantees.
Now, you mentioned something earlier, and it's something that Les would drill in my head at one point. And what you said was a lot of the people that you saw getting gigs weren't necessarily the best speakers. They were the ones who were putting in the effort to get gigs. And so the way Les put that was best known beats best every time. And so if people will just take on the responsibility, and I love what you're saying, man. I may give you credit the first time maybe the first 2 times I use it, about certainty and guarantees, I'll give you credit 2 times at least, and then I'll have to adopt it as my own.
Hey, that's nothing. There's nothing new under the sun, right? So I probably done adopted it from somebody else. All the books and stuff that I listen to. I mean, hey,
So I love it. As someone who acquired and scaled a large speaker directory, what metrics do you track most closely to judge the health of SpeakerHub?
so it depends. At the beginning, we tracked number of new users. Like we wanted to just see people signing up, right? But it doesn't matter if people aren't getting results, right? So then we started tracking results, right? Like,
Okay.
okay, all these people signed up. How many of them are getting booked? So when we took over SpeakerHub, we had 51,000 people in the directory, right? Now we're over 67,000 in about 18 months. So we grow about 1,500 speakers a month, right? So we started tracking that. And then we said, well, how many of them are getting booked? Well, I know from our coaching clients that we work with directly, not the ones who don't ever log in, don't ever use it, any of that, but from the ones who actually use it, they booked 7,000 meetings with event planners last year. Now they reached out to 60,000 people, but
Hmm.
it was like for every 10 pitches, somebody got booked someplace,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So that was a positive thing. So we look at that because that's really what's important to us is we look at SpeakerHub as the only positive message music or record company in the world because I've never heard of a demotivational speaker. So,
Hmm.
you know, but we all have heard negative music talking about drug
Yeah.
abuse,
Yeah.
misogyny, killing people, right? So record companies promote a lot of negativity. SpeakerHub promotes only positivity. So we think about that from that perspective. How many positive messages are we getting on stage? So those are the metrics we count: new users and number of stages booked.
Got you. Um, Looking ahead, Ron, what major changes do you expect in the speaking and podcast guesting ecosystem over the next 3 to 5 years, and how is Speaker Hub preparing for that?
I think this is the best time in history to be a speaker. With all of the AI stuff and things that are out there, people are craving more than ever real life stories. Like for us to be able to sit and talk about how we met in Denver and our different experiences with different people that we know in common. AI can't do that.
Yeah.
Right. AI can't say, I was taking my son to soccer practice the other day. What? The iPad was taking the iPhone to soccer practice? Get out of here. Like,
Right.
no, so there's certain things, if you have the ability to effectively communicate and you want to break through the noise by telling authentic, real stories, there's no better time to do that than now, right? So that's what I see coming forward. We'll see some of the folks who wanted an easy fall out, which is normal, but those who want to break through, they'll win. Another thing that I see happening in the next few years is the way that speakers get paid will completely change. Already the paid upfront keynote speech is pretty much dead outside of corporate.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you'll see because corporate don't want you selling to their employees. So they still pay speakers to come in and do trainings and things like that. But outside of there, people don't mind you selling to the audience.
Hmm.
So a lot of conferences are cutting their speaker budgets and they're allowing the speakers to sell their products and services. So if you're only getting paid up front to speak, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage to someone like me who my first year speaking did $1 million of revenue. My first year because I had something to sell.
Hmm.
If I didn't have nothing to sell, I'd have did 39 speaking gigs for free and made nothing and called the speaking industry a scam like everybody else did. you know,
Hey,
but I had a better way to do it.
got you. Now, for those folk like me who are going to, after this inspiring conversation, dust our speaker accounts off, speaker hub accounts off, and go back in and be true to it. Are there, I know you have your weekly, I'm sorry, the five, what was it?
Yeah, there's the booked in 5-day challenge, but we used to do a daily call. We moved it to Mondays and Fridays now.
Okay.
And the reason that we went to Monday and Friday is if you teach people every day, they get in learning mode, not implementation mode. So
True.
they just want to keep learning and they feel like they're making progress, especially us as Black folks. I don't know who your audience is on there, but as Black folks, we are used to getting gold stars, graduate from high school, go to college, get a master's, get a PhD. And then we get upset when the boss give our job, the promotion to they nephew
Yeah. Yeah.
who ain't got none of them degrees. Well, your degrees don't promise you anything, but it feels like progress, right? So with that being the case, I think a lot of times we were doing the daily calls and people felt like they were progressing, but we started seeing their pitching go down. They weren't getting as many gigs because they were learning from us instead of taking that time to send out the emails.
They wanted to sit in
So,
class. I got you. So
yeah,
to get in that Monday and Friday situation, speakerhub.com is it you going in
speakercoworking.com. Speaker
speaker
co-working. Co-working.
speakercoworking.com. Okay.
Yep. Speaker co-working, and we'll give you a link to that. When you leave me a review, I'll give you a link to it so that you can log in. But yeah, Speaker co-working, it's a live Zoom. There's usually 50 speakers or so from around the world that hop in and just ask questions about building their business. But yeah, it's really for those who are trying to use their voice to build a business. If you're tired of playing with ClickFunnels and Go High Level and all of that, it's time for you to start speaking. I mean, that's really
Yeah.
nothing against those guys, but it's
Since
just
that's
time for
what
you to start speaking.
since that's what you got in the game for, you might want to start doing it, huh?
Even if you're an accountant and lawyer, you never thought about speaking, but you know that speaking, if you talk to a room full of, if you're a lawyer, you go talk about intellectual property and trademarks and things of that sort, and people end up coming and becoming clients. Why aren't you speaking every week?
Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. What's one belief you used to hold about speaking or marketing that you've since changed, and what convinced you to change it?
That I wasn't a speaker,
Okay.
right? And it wasn't that I wasn't a speaker, it was that I didn't like the stigma of being called a speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you why that was. And people get mad at me when I say this, but I don't care. Everybody who I knew that was a doer, they never had speaker on LinkedIn. Even if they were out speaking,
Mm-hmm.
if they were getting results, they didn't have in their title, I'm a speaker.
Got it.
I'm a motivational speaker. I'm a perspirational speaker. I mean, get your ass to work. Like, that's what I
Mm-hmm.
tell people to do. Go do the work. I ain't here to motivate you. I'm here to perspirate you. I'm going to put you to work so you can get the stuff done. And so I didn't respect that motivational thing because they didn't have the results. And I would, yeah, you inspired me, but when I look at your life, I didn't want it.
I get that.
So I
Yeah.
never wanted someone to put me in that box saying, well, he's just a speaker.
Mhm.
Nah, I do this. I just speak to tell y'all about the stuff I do. So that's why my attitude is that. And that's why I talk to entrepreneurs, because we all have the things to share. Secretly, we don't want to be put in that I'm a motivational speaker box because it diminishes the work that we're actually doing as entrepreneurs, accountants, lawyers, things of that sort. We take more pride in those labels that we've earned
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because you don't have to earn being a motivational speaker. You got to earn being a good one.
Yeah.
But you can't just wake up tomorrow and call yourself the circuit county judge. You got to go to law school,
Yeah.
right? So we take pride in the titles that we've earned versus the ones that we gave ourselves.
Yeah.
So that was the biggest, that was the biggest thing. It's like, dude, you are, just go do it. And what they say, you are what you do. I speak. But I also do the work too. So if I cut hair, I would be a barber.
Mm-hmm.
But don't call me a barber. Dude, you cut hair every day. You're a freaking barber.
Hey man, that's funny because I did have a guy get mad at me for calling him a barber. I'm thinking back now. But let me ask you this, Ron. What have you most enjoyed about the time that we've had to spend today?
You know what? I mentioned it earlier. I think that if there's anybody who's listening to this and you're thinking about being a podcaster, I think the prep work that was done to be able to ask me questions that I've never been asked before was really good because I don't get to talk about a lot of these things. Usually people want to hear the old I was struggling and then I made it story. And that wasn't what this was about. It wasn't this I had a hard time in East St. Louis. Like, no, that wasn't that. So that's what I enjoyed the most. And I always enjoy sharing with people that it's possible. Again, I grew up in East St. Louis. I've lived in 5 countries. I've lived in Colombia for the last 10 years. I've worked with some of the best people on earth. And it's all just because of being able to show results. So if you don't have anything else, show your results. And that will increase your certainty. That'll make you believe in yourself more because you'll realize how many people haven't done the things that you've done. So that would be the message I would leave with everyone. But the thing that I took away was your level of preparedness.
Well, I want to thank you, Ron. You are an amazing individual. I'm so glad I got to meet you when I did. I'm going to take advantage of the software that you've created.
No.
You've enhanced and created. I'm not just going to have it on my shelf and every year go, are my Bitcoins still there? So I appreciate it. I think the same kick in the butt that Les gave you, you just gave me, though you didn't even mean to. I need to go ahead and do this thing. I want to thank the Mind the Business That Pays You family for tuning into this. We've gotten some incredible information, but information without implementation, we might as well have not gotten it at all. www.speakerhub.com. This is an incredible gentleman who has an incredible software that will change your life if you use it. And so, thank you so much, Ron. Thank you, family. Ron, hang in there for 1 minute. We're going to let our people go, but I need to talk to you for a few seconds. Thank you, family, and we'll see you next time on Mind the Business That Pays You.